If there's one thing that has always captivated us, it's the idea of a magical world hidden right under our noses. That's exactly why franchises like Indiana Jones and Percy Jackson are still so incredibly popular today. We just love the thought that a boring history class could be the gateway to a global conspiracy, and it was riding that exact wave of archaeological exploration that an animated series from our childhood truly shined. It took the thrilling spirit of a treasure hunt, mixed it with monster battles in true Pokemon fashion, and delivered something wildly creative. This is where the forgotten gem we're unearthing today comes in. Huntik. At its core, it's an epic journey centered around relic hunting seekers who summon creatures known as Titans. But hey, don't be fooled into thinking this is just another generic adventure. The show has incredible depth. The script doesn't hold back, hitting us with heavy betrayals, manipulative villains, and characters who take a real beating while still trying not to flunk out of school. Huntik is one of those classic, nostalgic relics that, once opened for the first time, sucks you in for good. Locke Lambert is in the middle of a history test, dreaming of being Indiana Jones. He manages to convince his classmate Sophie to lend him her notes after solving her crossword puzzle in a ridiculous 90 seconds, and the two head to his dorm to study. There, Sophie bumps into a vase belonging to Locke's dad and shatters it. Classic. But the accident reveals a hidden journal and an ancient amulet. Sophie recognizes a symbol and mentions that a guy named Dante Vale can help. Before they can process anything, guys in suits storm the room, shattering the window and firing magic. What was supposed to be a study group turns into a desperate escape. During the chase, Sophie lets the suits think they've caught her, only to hand them a brutal beatdown with absurd strength. She escapes to the roof, remembering that she saw that exact same symbol from the journal in a devastating fire during her childhood. Meanwhile, Locke hears a mysterious voice coming from his own pocket talking about Titans and amulets. He opens the journal and discovers it was written by his father, who has been missing for over 10 years. The chase continues, and Locke finds himself cornered on a rooftop. Without much choice, he jumps, and out of nowhere, a green aura makes him float gently down to a bridge. Magic is real. The suits catch up to him, and the journal ends up falling into the canal water. Now things get serious. The goons get authorization from their boss, Defoe, to summon real monsters using their own amulets. The chase tears through the streets of Venice with Titans destroying everything in their path. Locke manages to hide in a phone booth just long enough to rip out the page with Dante Vale's address before the place is blown to bits. While the villain boss wipes the memories of the witnesses on the street, Locke finally makes it to Dante's house, but gets knocked down at the door. That's when Dante Vale himself shows up. The guy deflects magic, summons his Titans, Caliban and Sewing, and clears the area in seconds. Once the dust settles, Dante explains that Locke has just entered the secret world of Seekers and the Huntik Foundation. And the mysterious voice Locke heard? It's a little flying monster named Chariot, who quickly joins the team. With Dante's house surrounded by the organization, the situation calls for quick action. Dante opens a hidden safe inside an antique phone, pulls out an amulet, and tosses it to Locke. The kid wastes no time and bonds with the artifact's Titan on the spot. Up on the roof, Dante intentionally taunts the suited agents just to lead the fight away and avoid destroying the neighbors' houses. Mid-escape, Sophie appears out of nowhere, summons her own Titan, Sabriel, and reveals she's also a Seeker. To top it off, her bodyguard, Santiago, takes care of the last goon with his bare hands. The team heads to Sophie's mansion. Since Locke is just a broke student and has no way to pay for Dante's help in the search for his father, Sophie opens the Castorwill fortune wallet and hires him. We find out that Locke's father was looking for a powerful artifact called the Amulet of Will. The next day, after finally taking that history test, training begins at the Venice Library. Locke tries to cast a fire spell and fails miserably, but at least he manages to summon his Titan, Freelancer. Sophie cross-references the intel and discovers that the trail leads straight to Prague, right in the enemy base's backyard. Santiago, acting like the classic overprotective bodyguard, thinks it's too dangerous and challenges Dante to a fight before letting the girl go. Dante wins easily, proving he can handle the job, and they find the name of an ancient seeker, Jodis Lore. But the peace is short-lived. Defoe and his goons melt the mansion's locks with acid and storm the place. Magic flies everywhere. Chariot and Locke manage to knock out a few enemies, while Santiago creates the perfect distraction for the group to escape with the research. Acknowledging Dante's worth after seeing him take a hit to protect Sophie, Santiago entrusts her safety to him at the airport. The destination is now Prague, but the organization already knows this and is heading to the exact same place. In Prague, the team is in a hotel room drawing up a plan to infiltrate infiltrate Jodis Lore's tomb. The problem is, the organization has already surrounded the building. Down in the street, a mysterious woman named Zalia Moon yanks a hidden earpiece out, summons her Titan, and enters the hotel to clear the way for Dante and the rookies. With her help, the enemies are crushed. Zalia introduces herself as an independent seeker and drops a bombshell. The leader of the organization, known as the Professor, has spies infiltrating the Huntik Foundation and can manipulate minds.
Haven't you heard the rumors about the one they call the Professor?
The Professor?
His collection of amulets and ancient artifacts is the largest in history.
That night, the group heads to the central cemetery. Using clues from the journal and the old golem myth, Sophie spreads clay on the tombstone and draws the symbol of truth, opening a secret staircase. Inside, things go full Indiana Jones. A room full of booby traps requires them to step only on the light-colored bricks. When Dante's motion detectors warn him that Defoe and his goons have arrived, he goes back to stall them. Locke, trying to play hero, runs to help, completely forgets about the fake floor, and triggers Jodis Lore's deadly trap. With chaos ensuing and outnumbered, Dante fakes taking a lethal hit to fall off the radar. Defoe grabs the key he was looking for and takes off, not noticing that little chariot hitched a ride on the roof of his car. With the path mostly clear, Dante uses a healing spell on himself, takes down the remaining goons, and, alongside Zalia, creates a mold of the key. The team proceeds to set up an ambush. When Defoe tries to bond with the Titan Metagolem, all hell breaks loose. Locke, focusing too much on a single target, ends up getting knocked out in the very first minute of the fight. When he wakes up and sees his friends taking a beating, he uses his father's own amulet to summon Kipperin. Growing wings, Locke swoops down and knocks Defoe over at the exact moment the villain thought he had won. With the tide turned in their favor, Dante secures the Metagolem amulet and the villains retreat. The heroes head back to Venice with their notes, while in Prague, the Professor makes it perfectly clear to Defoe that failure is not an option in the organization. Zalia Moon joins the team, and while the gang waits for the Foundation to decode Locke's dad's journal, trouble is already brewing in France. A giant whirlpool swallows a boat in the Seine River. A guy with glasses named Peter helps save the passengers and immediately tries to warn the Huntik Foundation about the anomaly. But before hanging up, a sinister guy in yellow glasses, who we will soon know as Defoe, shows up with the police and gets him arrested. Back in Venice, boredom reigns. To kill time, Dante teaches Locke and Sophie how to use the Holotome, a 3D map that also scans Titan stats. Soon, the head of the Foundation calls and passes down the mission. Investigate the whirlpools in Rouen and find the Gargoyle Titan before the organization does. Their guide, the recently arrested Peter. Arriving in France, Zalia solves the prison problem in the most practical way possible. She disguises herself as a lawyer, uses mind control on the police chief, and walks Peter right out of there. When the cops realize the trick, Zalia summons her lizard titan, Garion, to cause tactical chaos and ensure their escape. In the forest, peace doesn't last. Organization goons ambush the group. Dante orders everyone to settle it hand-to-hand to avoid drawing attention, and Locke finally wins his first one-on-one fight. During the commotion, Peter confesses that he gave the location of the Gargoyle's cave to Defoe. It's a race against time. They steal a boat and Dante pulls off an action movie-worthy maneuver, using the speedboat as a ramp to breach the hidden cave. Inside, Defoe and his men are already on the scene, and a Titan war explodes. Locke figures out that the main statue is an illusion, and Sophie shatters it with a spell. He activates a secret water mechanism, but they're too late. Defoe has already bonded with the real gargoyle, beats Dante down, and runs off thinking he's won the day. Except he's celebrated too soon. Locke, proving he has a sharp eye, spots a different statue. He pours water over it and opens a new secret passage. The Titan might have slipped away, but the secrets of the cave are just beginning. Pressing forward through the new secret passage, the group enters the French catacombs. Peter, trying to play archaeologist to impress the team, steps where he shouldn't and triggers a trap. Locke plummets down a hole but is saved at the last second by his flying titan, Kipperin. Dante quickly figures out that the trap was built specifically to test seekers. This leads them to an incredible hideout, Joan of Arc's own secret base. There, they find her diary with a riddle that leads to an overpowered ring hidden beneath Paris. Meanwhile, the leader of the organization, the Professor, rips Defoe a new one. The villain in yellow glasses thought he was a big shot with the gargoyle, but he left the real prize behind. The riddle says the entrance is seen through the eyes of the most beloved lady. Sophie cracks the enigma instantly. Notre Dame. In Paris, they scale the cathedral, find the right gargoyle, and use the statue's line of sight to pinpoint an abandoned church.
Could use some work. Religious, even I know that. Wait, that old church. Then we start there.
Dante kicks the door in. Zalia finds the secret stairs, but Defoe shows up with an army of goons. Dante holds the front line while Sophie activates a passage in the floor, allowing Dante to collapse the ceiling to block the villains and secure their escape. Underground, the tension only rises. One wrong touch by Sophie on some glowing crystals causes the tunnel to cave in on Zalia, forcing the team to work fast to dig her out. Shortly after, Locke gets distracted by a puzzle box and ends up trapped in a room with spiked walls that start closing in, very Indiana Jones style. In a panic, he solves the puzzle and frees Springer, a fox titan that bonds with him on the spot. The group finally reaches the room of the Ring of Arc, guarded by enchanted knight armors. Sophie destroys the guards with magic, and Zalia grabs the ring. But when Locke touches the artifact, things spiral out of control. He gets bombarded by a terrifying vision of his missing father, the professor, and monstrous titans before passing out. The team now has a cursed ring, an unconscious Sophie, and the organization breathing down their necks. Sophie acts fast and uses a containment spell to hold back the Ring of Arc's curse. The problem is, the magic only lasts 30 minutes. They need to hand the artifact over to a Foundation specialist before the clock hits 0. To make matters worse, Defoe has mobilized literally every suited goon in Paris to lock down the catacomb exits. The guy is dead set on letting no one through. The solution comes from Zalia, who uses her disguise kit to craft perfect replicas of the ring. The team decides to split up. Everyone takes a ring and tries their luck. It's the classic divide and conquer tactic to protect the main target. While looking for a way out, Locke ends up stumbling across an archaeology kit and, with the help of Springer, his new fox titan, opens a safe hiding a mysterious map. Even in the middle of a desperate escape, he keeps tripping over valuable clues. The distraction plan, however, seems to go down the drain. One by one, the members of Dante's team are cornered and captured by the organization, but that's when the masterstroke is revealed. When the four are searched, the goons discover they're all carrying fake rings. Dante played everyone and gave the real Ring of Arc to Garyon, Zalia's titan. Using its camouflage ability, the lizard turned invisible and walked calmly out of the catacombs, right under the enemy's noses. Brilliant and humiliating in equal measure. Realizing he's been played for a fool, Defoe retreats. At the organization's base, Rasimov delivers the worst news possible. The professor is absolutely livid. Defoe is suspended from his duties and warned that he wasn't completely erased from existence by sheer luck. Locked in his secret lab, the villain throws a tantrum and swears that Dante Vale will pay dearly for this. In sunny Venice, the team is focused on training, but Locke is still struggling with the basics. He tries casting a simple spell and almost fries Dante's hair. Typical rookie mistake, but there isn't much time to practice because Guggenheim, one of the Huntik Foundation's top brass, calls in with a heavy-duty mission. Head to Iceland and retrieve Mjolnir, yes, Thor's hammer. Before facing the ice, they take a detour to London to meet Tursley, a highly strung Foundation researcher. The guy drops a mythology bombshell. Thor was never a god, but rather an absurdly strong seeker, and his hammer was an artifact made to supercharge titans in the ancient war. During the explanation, Locke and Sophie spot a hooded figure snooping through the window, but the spy uses an illusion and vanishes before getting caught. 2 days later, the climate shifts to the extreme cold of Iceland. Zalia shows up to reinforce the team right as a colossal ice giant, the titan Ymir, decides to attack with its frozen army. The team's titans turn into punching bags way too fast, and Dante does the only smart thing. He orders a full retreat.
Be on your guard. Be ready for anything. Plan B. Everyone run!
On the run, Sophie remembers her mythology lessons. The path to Asgard has always been a rainbow bridge. It sounds like something straight out of Mario Kart, but they make it happen in real life by mixing water and fire titans to create mist. While Zalia clears the clouds with her Strix, a solid rainbow forms, connecting them straight to the Temple of Thor. The crossing is far from peaceful, with snow monsters attacking from all sides. Salvation comes from a new face, Montague, the Foundation's second in command, who pops up out of nowhere with Tursley to help with the beatdown. Together, they clear the path to the temple doors. A hooded guardian greets them with unsettling calmness. They walk in, the heavy stone doors slam shut and lock everyone inside. The host announces that his master is expecting them, and the trap closes perfectly. Trapped in the heart of the Temple of Thor, the tension between the Seekers becomes glaring. Montague makes it very clear how his friendship with Dante works. They might grab a beer together on the weekends, but on the battlefield, rivalry speaks louder. From there on out, it's every Seeker for themselves. And the reception inside doesn't help. The team discovers that Thor's guardians have been completely infiltrated by the organization. As if dealing with fanatical cultists wasn't enough of a problem, the enemies unleash Fenris, a savage, giant wolf-shaped titan that has spent centuries absorbing the temple's magic. The beast hits like a runaway train, and the team takes a brutal beating right off the bat. It becomes obvious that Pride isn't going to win this fight. Dante and Montague are forced to swallow their rivalry and work in sync. When the two biggest veterans in the room decide to actually cooperate, the tide turns. The organization and the giant wolf are finally crushed under the weight of teamwork. With the goons out of the way, the main prize awaits, but Thor wasn't just going to leave Mjolnir on a pedestal waiting for someone to grab it. Dante and Montague must face the final test, an insane race across a series of floating steps that constantly shoot lightning bolts. Remember those TV game shows where any mistake drops you in the mud? Here, a mistake turns you into barbecue. The race for the hammer hits maximum stakes. Far from Nordic relics, the mood gets heavy for a much darker reason. Metz, Dante's mentor and president of the Foundation, is suffering from a mysterious illness that laughs in the face of any medicine or healing magic. Desperate, Dante heads to Vienna to find a cure at any cost. He tries to play lone wolf and sideline the team, but ends up remembering Metz's own lessons about not carrying the world on his shoulders. On the other side of the board, Defoe is one step away from a nervous breakdown. Frustrated by his repeated failures to eliminate Dante, he starts smashing his own training equipment. Rasimov shows up with a clear warning. The professor is giving him one last chance, albeit on probation. The mission is to go to Vienna and retrieve the Titan King Basilisk. Failing again is not an option. Meanwhile, Locke and Sophie find an address in Locke's dad's journal and fly to Austria to try and help. Dante senses their presence and shakes them off with humiliating ease, but the two teenagers persist and discover that the address is the resting place of King Basilisk. It doesn't take long for Defoe and his goons to arrive. The villain uses a key given to him by the organization to open a secret labyrinth in the mansion. Locke and Sophie sneak in right behind them, only to bump into Zalia, who is also there to secure the Titan for herself. Dante finally manages to buy the cure in a shady meeting on a park bench, but panics when he returns to the office and discovers the teens are missing. In the labyrinth, Defoe captures Locke and Sophie with a sadistic plan. Use them as bait to test King Basilisk's trap, which had already turned a chunk of his men to stone. Dante breaches the place, handing out beatdowns to free his students. Amidst the chaos, Zalia does what she does best, sneaks away, only to reappear and save the day with King Basilisk itself in her hands. With the power to petrify enemies now on their side, Defoe and his goons retreat with their tails between their legs.
Until we next meet, Dante Vale, I will think only of your destruction.
The team survives, but the mood isn't entirely celebratory. Locke looks at his dad's journal and sees an exact drawing of Defoe's key. Suddenly, figuring out who to trust has become the biggest challenge of all. Sophie is giving Locke a crash course in martial arts when the next major mission knocks on the door. The objective? Head to Greece and find the legendary ship Argo, along with the logbook of Jason and his hoplite titans. Very Percy Jackson style. Far away in Libya, Defoe is on his own treasure hunt for the Sword of St. George and the Titan Lindorm, but it only takes a spy tipping him off that Dante is in Greece for Defoe to drop everything. He aborts the mission immediately, completely ignoring Greer's complaints, and flies after his rival, that classic villain obsession. In Greece, the team finds an underwater cave, perfect for hiding a ship. Using magic and titans to hoist an entire vessel to the surface drains almost all of their energy, and proving he has impeccable timing for being an inconvenience, Defoe shows up exactly at that moment of exhaustion. With the team cornered, Dante has to improvise. He manages to snatch the Sword of St. George from Defoe's hands and picks up on Greer's dissatisfaction with his own boss. Dante proposes a deal. They retreat, and Greer can take Defoe as a prisoner. Greer doesn't think twice. The villain is dragged away while screaming orders that nobody cares about. Dante hands the sword to Locke, who bonds with the new Titan. Inspecting the ship, they find the real prize in a secret compartment, the logbook and a map pointing to the Aegean Sea. In the midst of this, Zalia is tasked with taking the confiscated amulets to a Foundation safe house. Without anyone noticing, she pockets the Gargoyle amulet. Old habits die hard. Meanwhile, at the enemy base, Greer hands Defoe over to Rasimov, leaving his former boss begging on the floor. The voyage to the Aegean Sea is short-lived before the trouble begins. Mysterious vines invade the ship, destroying the engine and forcing the team to dock at an island called Medea. Curiously enough, the leader of the place is also named Medea. No red flags there, trust me. Things at the organization's headquarters aren't calm either. Defoe tries to steal amulets to bail himself out, but Greer isn't having it. He intercepts his former boss, resolves the issue, and sends his troops straight to the Aegean. On the island, the hospitality is a little too perfect. Medea offers herbs to help with Metz's illness. Sophie discovers a library filled with secrets about her own family, and Locke gets hints about a man with a puzzle. All very convenient. Convenient enough to set off Zalia's radar. Using the holotome, she exposes the truth. The entire island is an illusionary trap. The perfect scenario crumbles. With the charade revealed, Dante wastes no time. He charges at Medea and manages to retrieve the amulet responsible for the illusions. Knowing the artifact is too dangerous to use on the fly, he ships the item straight to the Foundation for analysis. While the team deals with the illusions, the professor delivers his final sentence and orders Greer to eliminate Defoe for good. Receiving the command and a squad of agents, Greer decides it's time to head home, setting off for Sutos, an island in the Aegean that is engulfed in a violent civil war. A new Titan is always a headache before it becomes an asset. Locke is sweating to keep Lindorm under control, barely managing to force the creature back into its amulet even with Zalia's help. They finally arrive in Sutos, but the island is an absolute battlefield. Local warlords are tearing the place apart until Greer descends from the sky in helicopters, declaring that the organization is taking over. A standard corporate hostile takeover. The team splits up. Locke, Sophie, and Chariot draw the locals' attention to create a diversion, buying Zalia time to search for the sunken ship Argo, while Dante heads straight to confront Greer. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Locke loses his temper and invokes Lindorm again. The Titan steamrolls through the organization's agents, but the people of Sutos panic and start attacking the creature. Realizing that innocent bystanders could get hurt, Locke immediately recalls the Titan, a rare moment of common sense.
Locke, stop him!
Come on! Listen to me! Lindorm!
Zalia manages to recover the hoplites, Jason's original Titans. When the team finally corners Greer, the tension gives way to a reality check. Greer reveals that his father was the former ruler of the island, killed during a revolt that plunged Sutos into this endless civil war. He doesn't want to rule the world. He's just using the organization's resources to restore peace to his homeland. Basically, a good guy on the wrong side. Since the organization didn't even know the hoplites were there, Greer proposes a truce. He lets the team leave with the Titans, and Dante and Greer part ways with an unlikely mutual respect. The team decides to take a vacation in Ireland, Locke's homeland. But peace just isn't in their vocabulary. Right off the bat, Locke discovers that his mother, Sandra, isn't an ordinary housewife. She's also a seeker for the Foundation. To complicate the group dynamic, they bump into Scarlet, Locke's former babysitter, who grew up to be an elite seeker and is now being hunted by the organization. Scarlet leaves Locke and Dante completely mesmerized. The obvious result? Sophie and Zalia are dying of jealousy, serving up some prime teen drama in the middle of a high-stakes mission. The ex-babysitter invites the team to explore the tomb of Newgrange to find the Titan Guybolg. During the exploration, Sophie and Locke have to stay outside to hold a passage open. Locke even tries to use the moment to bring up Sophie's jealousy, but the organization's suits show up and cut the chat short. Inside, Zalia is carrying a secret weapon called Deadcom, given to her by Klaus specifically to take Dante down. But when the dust settles and the pressure mounts, she realizes that the trust she's built with the team speaks louder. She simply can't pull the trigger. The agents corner everyone. In a split second, as a heavy stone door closes, Locke pushes Sophie inside to save her and stays outside to face the enemies. That's when his mother steps in, invoking her own Titans and proving that brawling skills are genetic. Zalia ends up using Klaus's weapon on the door, breaking the barrier and helping Dante open the passage. The whole team reunites, invokes their Titans, and wipes the organization off the map, while Scarlet secures the Guybolg amulet. At the end of the day, the jealousy fades. Sophie and Scarlet bury the hatchet, and Zalia locks herself in her room. When Klaus calls demanding results on her infiltration, she lies through her teeth, claiming she didn't get a chance, and hangs up. Back at the base, the decoded notes from Jodis Lore's journal point to their next destination, the tomb of Nefertiti in Egypt. But the professor, the big boss of the organization, has run out of patience with these heroes ruining his plans. He orders Rasimov to finish the team off once and for all. The villain's plan is surprisingly bureaucratic. He uses the organization's influence to hack and erase all of Sophie's bank records. Suddenly, the millionaire heiress is broke. The team has no money for plane tickets, and Zalia bails, leaving the group to deal with bankruptcy on their own. What follows is a festival of humiliation in the job market. Locke, Sophie, and the bodyguards try out part-time gigs. At the first one, a hotel, they get into a mess with a rich guest and her dog. At the second, a coffee shop, a customer complains his drink is cold. Locke solves the problem by using pure magic to boil the guy's cup, fired on the spot. Finally, at a fast food joint, they end up getting into a fistfight with suited agents who came to the counter just to laugh in their faces. Basically an American comedy sitcom episode, but with magic. Just as desperation hits, Dante shows up at the door waving plane tickets. While the rookies were flipping burgers, the veteran solved a few quick cases as a private detective and funded the trip. Arriving in Egypt, the relief is short-lived. Klaus and the organization got there first and are already excavating the tomb. The team tries to break in, but Klaus invokes the giant golem, forcing the heroes into a hasty retreat. Back at the organization's base, things don't end well for the villain either. The professor finds out that the attack on the banks drew the Huntik Foundation's attention to their secret finances. Furious at the strategic blunder, he uses his ring to torture Rasimov, making it clear that on the dark side of the Force, HR is anything but friendly.
Why do you need more obedience, school?
With the tomb of Nefertiti under enemy control, Dante devises an infiltration plan, while he and Sophie plant explosives on the perimeter just to make noise and create a diversion. Locke and Zalia manage to steal a detailed map of the site. Taking advantage of a quiet moment, Zalia drops her usual emotional armor. She tells Locke about her terrifying past as an orphan on the streets, surviving until Klaus rescued her and gave her life a purpose. It's a genuine, heavy confession, but the tension quickly shifts when she receives secret orders from Klaus himself just before stepping into the tomb. Inside, it's a classic combo of dangerous archaeology. They are nearly caught in a death trap, narrowly escaping thanks to the Titan Springer. Locke seizes the moment and finds a hidden passage detailed in his father's journal, but the organization appears out of nowhere for an ambush, forcing the team to split up in the rush. Following his own secret path, Locke stumbles into a room with a message left by his father on the wall and ends up discovering a mysterious puzzle inside a hidden compartment. The team manages to reunite in the main chamber. They survive a trap that requires precise calculations, proving that paying attention in math class saves lives, and finally get their hands on the coveted scepter of Nefertiti. The victory lasts exactly 5 seconds. On their way out, Klaus and his men are already waiting with weapons drawn. An intense fight breaks out. Realizing they won't be able to escape with the artifact intact, Dante does the unthinkable. He throws the scepter into the water, providing the perfect distraction for the team to escape with their lives. Klaus doesn't think twice and retrieves the prize. Back at the camp, the mood is one of total defeat until Dante breaks the silence with a confident smirk. He reveals that before tossing the scepter, he planted a microscopic tracker on it. They might have lost the ancient gold, but they just scored the direct address to Klaus's hideout. Dante's tracker works perfectly, leading the team straight to Vienna, hot on Klaus's trail. The plan is simple: recover the Jin's bottle. But of course, nothing is easy when the villain has a habit of scanning ancient spells and destroying the original artifacts right after. Before even landing in Austria, the team's plane is surrounded by 2 organization helicopters. And that's when Locke has an absurdly bold idea. Sophie takes the ship's controls while Dante and Zalia simply jump onto the enemy choppers. In midair, they invoke Metagolem and King Basilisk. The colossal weight of the Titans brings the aircraft down instantly. It's a scene straight out of Mission Impossible, with a touch of pure magical brute force. At Klaus's bookstore, the welcoming committee includes mutant spiders, because villains always love decorating their lairs with lethal arachnids. The team splits up to infiltrate the underground levels. While Sophie deals with booby-trapped archives, Zalia uses the distraction to secretly alert Klaus. The great irony? The file the girls find reveals that the Jin's bottle doesn't even hold real magical powers. On the lower levels, Dante, Locke, and Chariot find a scroll with a new spell and reach the vault door, where Klaus is already waiting, bottle in hand. Dante manages to paralyze a henchman but gets hit by the enemy leader's lethal poison. He uses magic to heal himself, but the side effect seems to leave him completely blind. Klaus laughs, already claiming victory. But Dante is the kind of guy who plays chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He reveals he never lost his sight, strikes back, and grabs the spear of Vlad the Impaler. That was the real objective of the mission all along. The team escapes with the actual prize, leaving the villain empty-handed. However, the price of victory comes in the form of a phone call. Klaus contacts Zalia with a new message. Her cover doesn't matter anymore. Now the order is to hunt down and eliminate the entire team. With the spear in hand, the mission now carries a much heavier weight, especially for Dante. The team leader visits his mentor, Metz, who is gravely ill, and makes him promise to prioritize the fight against evil over solely seeking a cure. The emotional blow is so hard that Dante almost walks out to their next destination barefoot. The team boards a train to Romania. The goal is to breach Vlad's castle before Klaus does.
So, how do we get in?
And in case you're thinking of Hollywood's Dracula, Sophie sets the record straight. He wasn't a blood-sucking vampire, but rather one of the cruelest seekers in history, who commanded terrifying titans. The European train ride vibe is cut short when Greer and the organization's agents raid the cars. An all-out brawl breaks out in the aisles until the team sweeps the enemies and reaches the castle. There, Dante uses the spear not as a weapon, but as a key to open the massive iron gates. To cover more ground, the group splits up. Down in the dungeons, Locke, Sophie, and Chariot come face to face with the legendary Titan Antediluvian and narrowly escape, falling into a hidden chamber housing a skull riddled with traps. In this tense moment, the real trap is sprung. Zalia appears, but not to help. Following Klaus's orders, she turns on the group and attacks Locke with everything she's got. The betrayal stings, but Sophie, who never walks into a fight without a backup plan, reveals she hid her amulets using an illusionist's trick. The two engage in an intense duel. Zalia dominates the fight with her illusions, but when it's time to deliver the final blow, memories of the team's support and Locke's bravery make her freeze. On the roof, Dante faces off against Klaus's mutant goons. Things get tight and he invokes Metagolem to destroy the entire roof, sending Klaus and his monsters into a freefall. Seeing Dante fall with them, Zalia finally makes her ultimate choice. She abandons the fight against Sophie, saves Dante from the drop, and petrifies Klaus, who still manages to crawl away. Back in Venice, the mood is one of silent mourning. The team forgives Zalia, understanding the terrible life she endured at the hands of the organization. But Zalia can't forgive herself. She says her goodbyes and leaves, breaking the group's heart. Locke, however, holds on to his unshakable hope, certain that her story with the team doesn't end there. Far from the wounds and betrayals of the present, the past holds its own secrets. On a rocky peak in the middle of a brutal storm, the legendary Lord Casterwill faces a shadow creature. He recites an ancient spell and calls upon someone unexpected. Chariot, the small titan, displaying absurd courage, charges at the darkness. The moment is epic, but the vision soon cuts back to the present, with Locke waving his hands to snap Chariot out of his trance. There's no time for daydreaming, as the Foundation sends the team straight into a new journey. The objective sounds like it's pulled from an adventure novel. Explore the mausoleum of Sir Lancelot. The prize could be an artifact pointing the exact way to the mysterious Amulet of Will. While Locke and Dante handle the heavy lifting, Sophie does what she does best and dives into the archives. In the Foundation's library, she discovers a shielded secret wing that only accepts members of the Casterwill bloodline. Inside, she finds a drawing of an amulet that Chariot immediately recognizes. It's confirmation that they're on the right track. On the other end, Dante and Locke enter Lancelot's tomb, facing magical traps and unfriendly ghosts. What they don't know is that Rasimov followed them. The organization's villain uses a classic parasite tactic. He stays in the shadows, letting the heroes trigger the traps and clear the way, essentially outsourcing the dirty work. When the duo reaches the treasure room, Rasimov decides he doesn't need them anymore and goes on the offensive. He invokes Lancelot's ancient titan, Cavalier. Tension spikes, but the titan has honor and refuses to obey an evil master. Furious at the rejection, Rasimov conjures dark magic that drains all the energy from the room and destroys the titan instantly, something that should be impossible according to the laws of magic. It's a terrifying display of power, making the threat level they are dealing with crystal clear. Rasimov vanishes as quickly as he appeared, leaving the heroes alive but stunned. Despite the scare, the expedition pays off. In a hidden room, they find a scroll with a new Casterwill spell, and it's not a combat spell. It's the exact incantation they needed to restore Locke's father's torn journal. An ailing Metz hands Dante a key and a map pointing straight to the coast of Turkey. This time, the target is the legendary titan of body, Behemoth, reportedly guarded by a tribe of Amazons. Dante, Locke, Sophie, and Chariot set off on the mission. Arriving in the forest, the welcoming committee is far from hospitable. The group is intercepted by the warriors, and Dante, always the strategist, orders everyone to hold off on invoking titans so they don't make things worse. But Sophie, acting on a defensive reflex, invokes Honor Guard. Instead of attacking, the Amazons stop, surprised by the girl's seeker powers. The second in command takes one look at the scene and draws the most logical conclusion to them. Dante and Locke are just Sophie's servants.
Can it be a female seeker? So it is all true. Then, these must be your servants.
Locke opens his mouth to complain, but Dante quickly covers it and agrees. Just like in Wonder Woman, the men here have to fight for their place. Taken to the fortress, they hear the story of Hippolyta and her mother. Everything goes well until Locke is caught snooping around a mechanism on a statue of the Forest Queen. This convinces the Amazons that the group has bad intentions. The result? Dante, Locke, and Chariot are thrown into a cage hanging from a tree, while Sophie is tied up with ropes on another. Dante finally explains that he played along with the servant lie precisely to avoid the VIP treatment Sophie just received. With no time to lose, Locke invokes Springer. Dante calls on Metagolem and they smash the cages. By the time they return to the village, chaos has already broken out. Rasimov and his goons are attacking the Amazons. In the middle of the confusion, a hooded woman appears out of nowhere, performs the tribe's sacred ritual, and challenges Hippolyta for leadership. She wins the fight with absurd ease, claims the Titan behemoth, and pulls back her hood. It's Zalia Moon, proving she knows how to make an entrance. She hands Dante a ring, and Rasimov, seeing a legendary Titan on the field, swallows his pride and retreats. In gratitude, Hippolyta hands over a chest that opens perfectly with Metz's key. Inside is a wedding dress and a photo of Metz's wedding to Hippolyta's mother. Back in Germany, the memory gives the old mentor strength. Zalia confesses her past as a spy to Metz, who officially welcomes her into the Foundation. And to wrap up the day, Metz finally reveals to Locke that he knew his father, Ethan. The revelation about Ethan gets Dante's mental gears turning. He warns Metz that Locke's father was likely much closer to his grand discovery than anyone realized. The breakthrough continues when Sophie finally manages to fix Ethan's journal. Locke runs to share the news with Dante, but picks the absolute worst moment possible. He interrupts Dante and Zalia millimeters away from a kiss. While the group focuses on the journal, the professor sends Rasimov on a clear mission: spy on and annihilate the team. The hunt leads them to Greece. While inspecting the walls of a castle for a secret passage, Locke falls into a pit protected by a force field. It's a highly specific spell that only he and his father could pass through. Outside, Sophie frantically tries to break the magical barrier with brute force. Zalia has to shake the girl and tell her to calm down, proving the ex-spy really cares about the team, and making Sophie's feelings for Locke painfully obvious. Inside, Locke finds an oracle. The old man confirms Ethan was there, and hands over the golden ticket. The only entrance to Atlantis is hidden in the ruins of the Temple of Poseidon. He also passes on a message from Locke's father: the most precious things are often hidden right under our noses. When Locke finally gets out, Sophie jumps into a relieved hug, only to blush bright red a second later. At the ruins of the Temple of Poseidon, they solve a riddle and Locke earns a new Titan, Bassa Laird, which bonds with him instantly. The peace is short-lived. Suits rain from the sky, but Locke handles business with backup from Zalia's Titan. The real problem hits when Rasimov himself joins the fray with reinforcements. The disadvantage is heavy, but our heroes find a secret passage and escape by the skin of their teeth. Once inside the dark cave, it dawns on them: this is the true path to the lost city of Atlantis. In New York, at the Foundation's headquarters, Metz introduces the new generation to the council. The suits are shocked to learn that Ethan Lambert's son is on the front lines, but Metz gives it to them straight. Either the Foundation puts its differences aside and works together, or the professor wins. While the politics play out, the team pushes through the Greek tunnels to a chamber marked by grotesque signs of battle. Using his holotome, Dante recreates the scene and sees Ethan fighting fiercely against organization agents. Faced with a door featuring several pairs of stone buttons, Locke ignores the complex options and presses the most obvious one, concluding that overthinking is sometimes the real mistake.
Hey, look too hard and you may miss the answer right in front of you.
On the surface, Rasimov doesn't give up. Using a stolen page from the journal, he also discovers the path. Dante's team crosses the door and finds a submerged cliff protected by a massive oxygen bubble, Atlantis, but they have to swim to get there. On the way, a shark decides Chariot would make a great snack. Never losing his cool, Dante uses the stone glove spell to literally pry the beast's jaws open while Zalia rescues the Titan. When they hit the magical bubble, they freefall. Dante breaks Zalia's fall elegantly. Locke tries to do the same for Sophie, miscalculates horribly, and ends up crushed beneath her on the ground. At the fortress, the welcoming committee isn't friendly at all. The mermen demand they pass 4 tests. Locke takes on the test of courage, walking through illusory flames without blinking. Dante takes the test of skill against 3 mermen who mirror absolutely every Titan he invokes. The strategist's solution? Invoke Behemoth, a legendary Titan that's impossible to copy. He wins but passes out from exhaustion. Sophie aces the test of intelligence, leaving the test of nobility for Zalia, the weight of her past with the organization almost makes her back down, but her sincere confession of her regrets proves she has a pure heart. The Guardian then leads them to the Amulet of Will. Rasimov attempts a final ambush, but Locke unleashes all his rage in combat, forcing the villain to retreat. The victory, however, leaves a bitter taste when the Guardian mentions that the door hasn't been opened in 10,000 years. The math is brutal. Ethan never made it there. The revelation shakes Locke to his core, but with Sophie's moral support, he swallows the pain, solves the final puzzle, and finally gets his hands on the Amulet of Will. Back home, the mood is pure frustration. No one can bond with the Amulet of Will, but their luck turns when they translate a page of the journal and discover that King Solomon was the last seeker to hold the legendary Titan of Spirit. Even better, his treasures are locked inside the mines of Ophir, which once belonged to the Queen of Sheba. Next stop, Ethiopia. There, a friendly guide named Otto leads the team deep into the desert to find the tomb. Except the Professor and Rasimov are hot on their trail. The bad guys know that if Dante's team gets their hands on another legendary Titan, it's game over. Along the way, our heroes dodge suited goons and angry villagers, but end up swallowed by a sandstorm. It's the perfect setup for everything to go wrong, and it does. Zalia and Otto get separated from the main group. While wandering the desert looking for those two, Locke, Sophie, and Dante stumble upon a tomb with a giant snake-shaped entrance. And since leaving well enough alone isn't exactly this team's strong suit, they accidentally awaken the place's guardians, 3 gigantic colossi. On the other side of the storm, Zalia's situation is much worse. She and Otto are captured by the Professor. Wasting no time, the villain uses his mind control ring to turn the guide into a puppet, and immediately after, he turns the ring on Zalia. The episode cuts with her screaming in agony, leaving that bitter taste that things have spiraled completely out of control. The team has a colossal problem on their hands, literally. They have to defeat the 3 Stone Guardians without Zalia's help. To make matters worse, the Professor and Rasimov appear out of nowhere, bringing Zalia and Otto with them. But our favorite spy doesn't disappoint. Zalia creates a perfect distraction, allowing the team to escape. Once safe, she drops the bomb. She was never mind-controlled. The girl simply improvised an alter ego on the spot, pretending to be a sleeper agent fascinated by the organization, and the Professor bought it hook, line, and sinker. While the organization uses its own titans to disable the mine's traps, the Huntik team runs into the Guardians again, who are now under the Professor's spell. That's when Montague and Tursley show up to save the day, helping to bring the giants down. Deeper in the cave, the vibe hits. Locke and Sophie start flirting, but Tursley kills the mood almost instantly.
If you can't do whatever you want.
Love is seldom simple, Locke.
You see?
What they don't know is that the Professor has already found the room of the legendary Titan of Spirit, but Dante and Zalia have a plan. Disguised in organization suits, they trick the Professor, making the villain believe he's in the wrong room and tricking him into leaving. In the real room, the final puzzle requires Locke and Sophie to dress up and pose as King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Even then, the door doesn't budge. It's only when Locke finally gathers his courage and confesses his feelings for Sophie that the magic happens and the vault opens. But the Professor realizes he's been tricked and storms the place. Dante tosses the Amulet of Will to Locke, who dashes into the chamber while the rest of the team holds the line in a full-blown brawl. Just as the organization seems to be winning, Locke emerges and invokes the legendary Titan. He wipes the floor with the villains, forcing the Professor to retreat while swearing revenge. Locke passes out from exhaustion, and Dante makes the message clear. They won the battle, but the war has just begun. At Metz's mansion, the puzzle pieces start falling into place. Since Locke was wearing the Amulet of Will when he grabbed the Ring of Arc and survived, Metz reveals the truth. The amulet is the key to breaking the curse of the legendary Titans. Then comes the reality check. Metz talks about his younger days, when he formed an unbeatable trio with Ethan, Locke's father, and a genius named Simon. The 3 of them traveled the world hunting Titans. But everything fell apart when they found the tomb of the legendary Titan, Arachnos. Ignoring the warning signs, Simon opened the door, invoked the creature, and became terminally ill. Even after recovering, he became obsessed with the Amulet of Will and fell off the map. The team splits up to look for answers. Zalia breaks into an organization base in the Netherlands and, in true Mission Impossible style, hacks into a top-secret file. She discovers that the whole story about the organization being centuries old is a lie. It was founded on New Year's Eve 1959 by a single member. When the team regroups at Dante's house, it finally clicks. The Professor and Simon are the same person. There's barely any time to process the information before the house's defenses are breached. The Professor shows up in person, riding the terrifying purifying Arachnos. With the Nullifier Titan secretly activated by Rasimov, Locke and Dante are unable to use their legendary Titans. Arachnos shoots webs that force the team's Titans to attack each other. It's absolute chaos. The team manages to escape into the streets, but things only get worse. They are ambushed by Shauna and Wind. Shauna steamrolls over Sophie, unceremoniously takes down Locke, and steals not only the Amulet of Will, but also Ethan's journal. Locke's only minor victory is managing to hide the Ring of Arc before getting knocked out. The villains escape with their prize. Back to square one and licking their wounds, Dante receives a message from the professor. If he wants answers, he's going to have to hand over the legendary Titans on a silver platter. A last-minute warning and a surprise visit from Guggenheim attempt to stop Dante from proceeding with the mission. Guggenheim even invokes his massive Titan to physically block the team, but the creature just starts licking Dante's face like a giant golden retriever. Zero intimidation. Without the Foundation's backing, the team decides to go rogue. They parachute straight into the professor's castle, but the welcome party is already waiting. Rasimov and his goons are standing by with illusion spells and explosive traps. An all-out brawl breaks out, and Dante engages in a tense one-on-one against Rasimov. Amidst the chaos and fire, Dante nearly plummets off a bridge, saved at the very last second by Locke's Titan. Rasimov seems cornered, but he quickly pulls Dante into another room filled with spikes. The villain ends up being thrown into what looks like a portal, leaving a valuable amulet behind and vanishing. Except the victory is a sham. Rasimov fell on purpose. He's already on the other side with his own allies, orchestrating the rise of a group called the Blood Spiral. Meanwhile, the team reaches the central chamber. The professor takes off his mask, reveals an ancient curse placed upon the legendary Titans, and does the unthinkable. Spinning a tale about wanting to cure everyone, he brilliantly deceives Dante, convincing the group's most experienced seeker to hand over 3 immensely powerful Titans on a silver platter. With the amulets in hand, the professor simply vanishes, leaving Dante with the worst trade deal in history on his resume.
I'm leaving it all to you. No!
Dante goes into a state of shock. A total blue screen of death. Locke is furious about the screw-up, but there's no time to lose. The professor is going to use the Titans to become immortal. The team splits up. Zalia stays behind to protect a vulnerable Dante from 2 guardian golems, while the kids go stop the ritual. In the main hall, the professor isn't playing around. He invokes the newly stolen Titans and wipes the floor with the kids, throwing Locke straight through a wall. Sophie is left all alone on the front lines. When her own Titans are mind-controlled by the enemy, the girl puts up a brave fight and invokes Albion to free them, but the cost is painfully high. The professor directly attacks Sabriel, and the Titan's amulet is destroyed forever. The loss is real and painful, forcing Sophie to burn her own life force just to stay on her feet. On the other side, Dante finally reboots his system and saves Zalia. The bizarre detail of the scene, they discover the golems were activated by a dog named Ethan. The professor's level of pettiness, naming a guard dog after his old rival, is honestly impressive. Locke wakes up in the villain's private study and finds his father's old journal, along with a mind control amulet. It's the missing piece. The team regroups in the invocation chamber at the exact moment the Supreme Titan, Overloss, appears. Working in perfect sync, Locke and Dante hack into the professor's connection. They force Overloss to open a portal to the spirit world, sucking the villain and the legendary Titans into another dimension. Metz is cured, the world is saved, and the greatest tragedy of all, summer vacation is over, and Locke has school on Monday. Nothing screams hero life, quite like saving the universe only to have to wake up early for school. There is no rest for this team. They raid the organization's central base to hunt for clues about Locke's father. The place is already under new management, Wilder, who has apparently taken over leadership in the professor's absence. Zalia manages to steal the files, and they escape, flying straight to Peru, following the coordinates of the waterfall where Ethan disappeared. The welcoming committee in Peru greets them before they even touch the ground. Wilder and his thugs ambush the team in freefall, slashing their parachutes mid-air because villains aren't known for their patience. The team uses magic to avoid becoming human pancakes and hits the ground fighting. While the brawl rages outside against poison monsters and deadly vines, the team finds a hidden cave. Inside is a nexus, a direct doorway to the spirit world. Ethan's spirit appears and drops 2 massive truth bombs. He went in there willingly to stop this blood spiral, and Sophie isn't just any magic user. She's a direct descendant of Lord Casterwill himself, literal seeker royalty. The spiritual connection starts breaking up due to the destruction happening outside. Ethan tells Locke to seek seek out Nostradamus' prophecies before fading away. With the Nexus destroyed, the two of them return to the battle. Things are getting rough, but Locke uses a power bond with his Titan, Basilard, receiving an insane power upgrade that wipes the organization right out of the waterfall. Back in Venice, the victory feels a lot like homework. Zalia decrypts the files, and now they have ancient riddles to solve. The real war is just beginning. The organization decides to raid Nostradamus' tower in France, which is now a museum controlled by the Huntik Foundation. Except instead of blowing the doors off and going in wands blazing, the new leader Wilder does the unthinkable. He just buys tickets. Polite villains, who would have thought? Of course, the disguise doesn't last long. A staff member stumbles upon Hoffman's file.
Sacre bleu.
Tell me, love.
All hell breaks loose. The cameras are destroyed and the local agents are taken hostage. But the distress signal manages to reach the New York headquarters. Dante's team springs into action. On the flight to France, Locke receives a holographic message from his father, telling him to find Nostradamus' scrying mirror and seek out the will blade. Mid-transmission, the plane is attacked by organization missiles. Zalia handles the problem by using illusions to deflect the enemy fire like it's nothing. Back at the tower, Wilder's goons ignore a giant magical warning on the observatory doors. They waltz in looking for the mirror, completely blind to the fact that the room is guarded by 3 invisible Triclops Titans. When Dante's team arrives and frees the hostages, the beatdown begins. Hoffman uses poison spells to weaken Locke and his Titan, forcing the group to improvise. Instead of fighting head-on, they pretend they're losing. This tricks Wilder and his thugs into firing attacks in the wrong direction, hitting the invisible Triclops dead on. The Guardians wake up in the worst way possible and literally throw the entire organization out of the building. With the area clear, Locke uses the mirror under the moonlight and deciphers the prophecy on the wall. Their next destination is set, King Arthur's Island, Avalon. The journey to find Avalon starts in the most chaotic way possible. LeBlanc decides to tag along to give Renaissance history lectures in the middle of the mission. Yep, he rides in on a surfboard, shivering from the cold, while the rest of them are wearing tactical scuba gear. The moment they hit the beach, the reception is hostile. Enemy seekers attack in full force using Titans. In the middle of the magical crossfire, LeBlanc tries to save himself, passes out on the sand, and Sophie ends up being thrown into the sea. Dante has no choice but to invoke Metagolem to demolish a piece of the cliffside, creating a cave where they can take cover. The mood inside is awful. Sophie is feeling useless and carrying the trauma of losing her Titan, Sabriel, but her family blood speaks louder and her hand begins to glow with the pure energy of Lord Casterwill. Like any good team, they decide to split up. Dante, Locke, and Zalia head out to follow some mysterious footprints outside, leaving Sophie and the recently awakened LeBlanc behind. And, fulfilling their role in the script, Dante's group walks straight into a trap, getting attacked by elite Casterwill family warriors. Meanwhile, Sophie is drawn into an illuminated cave, where she meets Nimue and Vivian Casterwill. Nimue recognizes the girl's lineage and puts her through a trial by fire. To prove her worth, she must rescue Sorceril, Sabriel's sister Titan. The pressure works. Not only does Sophie manage to recover an evolved version of Sabriel herself, but she also rescues Sorceril, reuniting the two sisters. With her renewed powers, she arrives just in time to break up the fight outside before anyone gets seriously hurt. Seeing the girl's strength, Nimue stands down and agrees to reveal the secrets of Avalon. The organization strikes again. After unearthing the amulet of the Kagami mirror in Japan, they set up a heavy ambush at the team's camp on the English coast. Dante's crew flees into the crystal caves, and the villains, fearing the Casterwill magic protecting the place, back off from entering. Nimue leads the team to the Dragon Cliffs. There, Chariot lights ancient braziers that reveal a giant blue bridge of light stretching across the ocean. The organization agents show up, threatening to shoot if they don't get to cross first. Dante, calm as ever, lets them pass. The agents leap with a victorious pose and phase right through the light, falling face first into the water. In true Looney Tunes fashion, the bridge was just a visual guide, not a physical structure. Following the mist by boat, they finally arrive at the castle ruins in Avalon. Locke and Sophie sprint ahead to find the legendary Willblade, while Dante, Zalia, and LeBlanc pulled off Wilder at the entrance. Zalia invokes King Basilisk to petrify everyone, but Wilder uses the Kagami mirror to reflect the monster's gaze. Without a second thought, Dante jumps in front of Zalia and ends up turned to stone. Inside the castle, the situation goes south. Wilder knocks Sophie out and uses the mirror to steal control of Locke's Titan, brutally throwing the kid against the sword's pedestal. Outside, LeBlanc and Zalia manage to break the curse, bringing Dante back to normal. But in the throne room, Wilder prepares to deal the fatal blow to Sophie. Desperate and battered, Locke reaches out and grabs the Willblade. A blinding blue light fills the room, and the spirit of Lord Casterwill himself appears, empowering Locke. He invokes Pendragon, the legendary champion Titan, who crushes the enemy forces in a split second and knocks Wilder out with a single strike. As the castle collapses and the team makes a safe escape, a red comet streaks across the night sky. It's the kind of omen that warns that every Seeker's life on Earth is about to be turned upside down. In the Foundation's library, Locke's boredom turns into a discovery. While the team racks their brains over Sophie's books to understand the Willblade, Locke plays around with the sword and ends up solving a puzzle on its hilt. A blue stone opens up, revealing a hidden amulet. The boy tries to invoke the Titan, but nothing happens. Though the energy feels strangely familiar, even Dante's holotome fails to scan the object. Serious ancient magic right there. But their investigative moment is cut short by 3 Seekers invading the space. A fight breaks out and the intruders actually think they have the upper hand, until Zalia drops her mental camouflage, revealing the Huntik team already had 3 giant titans pointed at their heads. Checkmate. Dante recognizes the spells and figures it out. The intruders are from the Casterwill family, and the leader, none other than Lucas, Sophie's older brother, who thought she had died in a fire years ago. The family reunion is tense. Lucas is there because of a red comet in the sky, a terrible omen, and he has zero faith that Locke is worthy of wielding the Willblade. To prove the team's worth, Sophie demands the traditional Casterwill test. The mission: retrieve the Void Amulet, which was stolen by the organization. The plan in Prague is pure spy movie material. Locke and Sophie act as bait and let themselves be captured by Wilder and his goons. Mid-interrogation, Sophie bluffs perfectly, getting the villain to hand over the amulet's location on a silver platter, Klaus's old bookstore. With the intel secured, it's time to bounce. Chariot, who was hiding in the trunk, tosses Locke an amulet. He invokes Basilard, blows up the organization's car, and sends the suits packing, while Dante, Zalia, and Lucas's team provide cover. By the end of the day, Lucas finally lets his guard down and admits he tried to keep Sophie away to protect her. The problem is that the threat is now global. He reveals that, in the past, a traitor used the Void Amulet under the Red Comet to summon terrifying creatures called nullifiers, basically the end of the world. And if it's up to the villains, history is about to repeat itself. To break into the old bookstore, the team needs Klaus himself. There's just one tiny detail. He was turned to stone by Zalia a while back. After reversing the petrification, they explain the situation and ask about the Void Amulet. Surprisingly, even the organization's cold-blooded strategist fears what the blood spiral can do to the world and agrees to help guide the team. Arriving at the bookstore, the welcoming committee is already set up. Wilder and the organization try to ambush them, but they get steamrolled by the Huntik team, who head straight down to the vault. Down there, Locke finally manages to get his hands on the Void Amulet, but the relief lasts exactly 0 seconds. A desperate holographic message from Locke's father, Ethan, pops up, warning that something terrible is about to happen, and he wasn't kidding. Out of nowhere, the real nightmare arrives, the Brotherhood of the Blood Spiral. The new faction brings an army of silent soldiers and the Titans Harlequin and Marauder, wiping the floor with Wilder and the remnants of the organization in seconds. It's as if the villains from past seasons were just a warm-up. Dante tries to control the chaos using the Arc Warder, but his old enemy Rasimov emerges from the shadows and destroys the amulet with dark magic. The scene turns into a massacre. In a last desperate attempt, Dante performs a power bond with the Titan Caliban, charging into hand-to-hand combat. His sheer absurd effort is the only thing keeping them from being annihilated on the spot. Amidst the chaos, Shauna knocks Locke out and steals the Void Amulet. The Spirals leave victorious and burn Klaus's base to the ground, turning the only childhood home Zalia ever knew into ashes. The team escapes by a hair, but the taste of defeat is bitter. Dante's going to have to deliver some terrible news to the council, and Locke and Sophie have to explain to Lucas that the Doomsday weapon just fell into the worst hands possible. The hangover from their last defeat hits the team hard. With no time to mourn, Locke, Sophie, and Chariot are in Rotterdam holding a ticking time bomb, the Vigilante Amulet. They need to get it to a Foundation safe house because this Titan has a nasty habit of bonding with people who harbor a dark side, and to top it off, it acts as a magnet for ill-intentioned seekers.
Alone will attract evil seekers.
Meanwhile, Zalia decides to visit her old orphanage, watching over everything from the rooftops like a silent guardian. Down below, young Den tries to defend his younger brother, Harrison, from a group of bullies. But the situation shifts when an old man named Tantras shows up. Zalia recognizes the tattoo on his neck instantly, the blood spiral. Pretending to be a scout for a special school, Tantras pulls the classic villain recruitment trick, like a Sith Lord looking for an apprentice. He feeds on the boy's anger and loneliness, and hands the Marauder amulet to Harrison. The boy is consumed by power and invokes the Titan to massacre his former tormentors. Seeing Den's determination to stop his brother, Tantris tries to corrupt him too, offering him the power to crush the bullies. Den refuses, proving he has morals. Harrison, however, embraces the shadows and leaves with Tantris. The two paths cross on the Erasmus Bridge. Locke and Sophie are ambushed by Tantris and his new recruits. Harrison and the bullies, now armed with Titans, aren't playing around. Dante arrives just in time to even the playing field with Caliban, but the real turning point comes from the outside. Den, who had been following Zalia and the group, steps right into the crossfire. To save his brother, who was on the verge of being defeated in the fight, Den takes drastic action. He bonds with the dangerous vigilante amulet and invokes the Titan. Ironically, Harrison sees Den's heroic act as a betrayal and flees with the blood spiral under the cover of a magical fog. Later, at Dante's house in Venice, Den is welcomed as the newest member of the Foundation. The original mission to find someone with a pure heart and strong will to tame Vigilante was a success, but it cost the boy the only family he had. In Paris, Foundation agent Clements is messing around with the Ring of Arc. The result? The artifact simply comes to life and starts summoning Titans out of nowhere. Locke and Sophie figure out through Ethan's holograms that the trouble in France is connected to the ring, and Dante, of course, deduces that there's no such thing as coincidences in the Seeker world. The team arrives in the City of Light and immediately runs into chaos. While fighting off the summoned Titans, they have to use spells to wipe the memories of cab drivers and families passing by. Classic Men in Black style damage control. Heading down into the famous Paris catacombs, they find Clements with the ring on his finger. In an attempt to save him, the whole team touches the artifact and is instantly pulled into a collective nightmare. And here's where things get dark. In Sophie's dream, she's playing a bizarre game of chess against the betrayer, turns into a space goddess and tries to stop the Red Comet, but ends up destroying a planet in the process. Zalia has an even more personal nightmare. She sees Dante being attacked, tries to help, but the enemies are copies of herself, forcing her to put on the blood spiral mask. Locke, meanwhile, finds himself surrounded by Harlequin Titans. He tries to summon his own Titans, but they turn into enemies and the will blade begins to crack. When all seems lost, Ethan's spirit appears, telling Locke to summon Pendragon. In a moment of pure psychological terror, his father's face melts and turns into the betrayers, but Locke manages to stay focused, uses the Titan, and breaks the illusion. Back in the real world, the team wakes up and comes face to face with Arc herself, the Titan of fate in the flesh. Locke triggers a power bond with Lindorm while Dante drops some heavy-hitting spells, and together, they finish the creature off. The ring is locked securely away. Everyone shares how brutal the experience was, except Dante. When asked what he saw, the guy just stays quiet. And let's face it, his silence speaks far louder than any words.
Hey Dante, you never told us. What happened in your dream?
Over at the blood spiral base, the tension is thick. Rasimov answers to the betrayer, who demands new recruits for the Brotherhood, and a candidate steps up, Stack from the organization, who promises to hand over the Medusa Titan as proof of loyalty. To ensure it's not a trap, the ruthless Keel is sent along with him. Meanwhile, the Huntik team is still trying to process their recent nightmares and heads to Medusa's island. Once there, they run into Wilder. The organization's new leader thinks he's a tactical genius because infiltrating Stack into the spiral was his idea, living under the illusion that he can control the villains from the inside. Dante realizes there's no debating with this level of arrogance, and an all-out brawl breaks out. During the beatdown, Wilder plays dirty and even tries to steal Locke's will blade, but Dante comes to the rescue. Together, they dispatch the villain, who bails out swearing revenge. Far off, Zalia follows Stack to Medusa's cave and decides to operate in the shadows without telling the team. Inside, capturing Medusa turns into absolute chaos. Stack uses a magic mirror to try and trap the Titan, and Dante's team even sets up a perfect ambush to hold Keel off, but Caster Will hunters show up out of nowhere to ruin the plan. Locke ends up isolated against the Vulcan Titan, but with some help from Chariot and Zalia's mental illusions, he solves an ancient riddle, wins the fight with Basilard, and recovers the amulet. Keel, frustrated, knocks out Stack himself and makes a run for it. The aftermath of the mission hits differently. Sophie is haunted because she swears she knows Keel from somewhere, but the one who really takes the blow is Zalia. Seeing the team almost get destroyed because of her hesitation pushes her to make an extreme decision. Since espionage is her true specialty, she decides to officially infiltrate the blood spiral. She hands Dante a magically linked diary so they can exchange secret messages and says goodbye to the team, a move worthy of the departed but with far deadlier consequences. At the Foundation's Italian base, Den is figuring out that the Seeker life is no joke. The kid loses his patience with the training, snaps, and knocks over the library bookshelves. When Locke, Sophie, and Dante rush in thinking it's an attack, they use the opportunity to make the invitation official. Den is joining the team. Zalia herself recommended the kid before leaving. And speaking of her, Zalia's new life is far from easy. At the Spiral base, Harrison undergoes brutal physical and mental training with Tantras. The real reality check comes when the new recruits gather. Tantras brings out Stack, the organization's failed spy, completely broken, and executes him in cold blood right then and there, just to make the fate of traitors crystal clear. The pressure on Zalia's cover just skyrocketed. In Venice, Den goes missing and Locke goes after him. After saving the rookie from a street fight and taking a nice dive into the canal, Locke convinces Den that he has the instincts of a hero. The pep talk is cut short when Tantras' goons show up, hunting the kid for abandoning the Spiral. They flee, and Zalia, watching from the rooftops, uses the magic diary to warn Dante about the attack. A showdown in the narrow streets is inevitable. Locke trusts Den with the freelancer amulet, and the battle blows up. On one side, Locke summons Lindorm in an insane power bond to protect Sophie. On the other, classic brotherly drama unfolds. Den versus Harrison and his dark new powers. Against all odds, Den manages to overpower his brother. Meanwhile, Dante faces Tantras, who doesn't play fair. The villain has his own students hold Dante down to unleash a fatal attack, not caring if he hits his own allies. But Sophie and Locke arrive in time to force his retreat. Den tries to take his unconscious brother to the Foundation, but Zalia appears, knocks the kid out, and hands Harrison over to Tantras. The cold play works. She earns the Spiral mark on her arm and becomes Harrison's bodyguard. A massive price to pay, but now she's officially inside the circle of trust. The Huntik team is in New York on a supposed vacation, but Sophie has turned the itinerary into a museum marathon that would bore any tourist to death. Locke and Den are clearly dying of boredom as they are dragged through MoMA, while Dante quietly plots an escape route. What they don't know is that an organization agent is watching them, accompanied by a creepy insect titan. But the spy's real target isn't them. The agent follows an older gentleman named Foucault to the Cloisters, a medieval art museum. When the attack happens, Foucault doesn't even break a sweat. He reveals himself to be a caster-will, neutralizes the agent with a spell as if it were nothing, and prepares for the worst. At the Foundation's headquarters, the Council discusses the blood spiral threat and introduces Tien, a masked new caster-will liaison. The meeting is interrupted by Foucault's distress call. The following contrast couldn't be better. As the global crisis escalates, Dante gets an urgent mission from Metz right in the middle of a roller coaster loop. The mission is to protect the family secrets at the Cloisters. The professor has already sent his heavy hitters, Rasimov and Kiel, to the scene. Foucault forces the truth out of his prisoner. The Spiral wants to activate the Spiral mark and unleash creatures called nullifiers. To keep everything safe, he locks the knowledge away in a crystal. The team arrives in true Mission Impossible style, landing their jet right on the museum roof, only to be welcomed by Kiel and Shauna. Kiel traps Sophie in a terrifying sinking spell, but Locke and Den manage to save her. Realizing the true target is inside, the team crashes through the glass ceiling and breaches the library just in time to save Foucault. The battle is absolute chaos, with Rasimov summoning Cerberus, but an amplified spell from Sophie secures the win. On the getaway jet, Foucault acts like a bottomless pit of arrogance. He holds back information, tells Sophie to be content with just being an agent, and crushes any hope she had of connecting with her family. Seeing the girl's frustration, Dante takes the reins and warns him that the Huntik Foundation will be taking up this lack of respect directly with the Council. The tension in the jungle is palpable. Dante, Sophie, and Locke move through the shadows searching for Den, who was captured by the blood spiral. While Locke thinks the kid just got lost, Dante knows full well they've become the hunted. And up in the treetops, Marduk and Kiel watch everything like predators waiting for the right moment. Far away, Rasimov and the Spiral Elite celebrate the start of their plan, scheduled for the longest night of the year. When Shauna loses her patience with the waiting, Rasimov pins her down with an energy blast that serves as both a warning and a flex of his true power. Back to the search, Chariot spots an ancient temple, but the focus shifts when Kiel and Marduk show up dragging Den. What the villains didn't expect was Dante strategically positioned above them. Kiel attempts an attack, Dante dodges with surgical precision, and Chariot frees Den. That's when the kid does the unthinkable. Without anyone ever teaching him, he uses the Dragon Fist spell and drops Marduk, a surprise straight out of the Jedi playbook. book, tapping into the Force without needing a manual. The escape is frantic, scaling down cliffs and trading heavy spells until they manage to lose the spiral. Their real goal is to reach the temple and activate the mysterious blue star. When they finally arrive, the ambush is dead on. Dante and Den stay outside to hold the front line, allowing Locke and Sophie to slip inside. Dante summons the Elven King to clash head-on with Keel. The fight outside is brutal, but the real gut punch comes from Keel, who corners Sophie with a ring of fire and reveals he is the man who murdered her parents. Inside, Locke and Den try to light a magical blue fire by throwing powder into a well, but Marduk breaches the room. Locke throws himself at him and the two plummet into the pit. Marduk is sent flying away, while Locke emerges flying on the Titan Quetzalcoatl, soaring into the sky to become the blue star. The beacon shines alongside the red comet, uniting the Casterwills. The real war has just begun. With the blue star shining in the sky, the Casterwill family and Dante's team gather at the Iron Will Fortress in Kenya. But the vibe inside is far from a warm family reunion. Foucault and the Street Guardian act like bouncers at an exclusive club, barring non-Casterwills from joining. Even with Locke wielding the powerful Willblade, Sophie refuses to back down and proposes a formal alliance with the Huntik Foundation to face the blood spiral. Outside, Dante and Den's patrol is interrupted by spies. They head into the jungle and clash with the silent soldiers. The fight is highly technical and full of crossing spells, but the absolute standout is Den. He completely ignores the enemy magic, dodges the attacks, and handles the situation by headbutting a soldier right in the gut. Sometimes brute force solves what magic complicates. Inside the fortress, the alliance vote turns into cheap politics. Sophie's brother Lucas suggests a purely defensive tactic, letting the heroes hide the family away. Sophie is furious and demands they fight. Lucas's response is cold. He challenges her to the deadly test of courage. If she fails, she goes straight into exile.
Casterwill tests.
That's right. The trial of courage.
Fine, I accept.
Ready? My lady Sophie, wait.
Before entering the challenge, Sophie has a genuine moment with LeBlanc, who apologizes for not teaching her the clan's secrets. She assures him his teachings were essential and moves forward. In the testing room, an illusion of Lucas summons shadow serpents that no spell can destroy. Locke figures out the riddle fast. The monsters are manifestations of her own fear. Facing her insecurity, Sophie walks right through the shadows, touches the statue, and bonds with the legendary Titan, Mithras. Meanwhile, the blood spiral marches on. Deep undercover, Zalia tries to warn the team but is caught by Tantras. In a move worthy of a high-pressure spy thriller, she uses the power of the Titan Garyon to wipe the villain's memory before he can kill her, saving her cover. The message reaches Dante and Den at the edge of the jungle, and as Den peeks over the hill, reality comes knocking. The blood spiral army has arrived. The gang barely has time to breathe. Locke and Sophie just got back from the test of courage with the Titan Mithras in tow, and Sophie's reward is being crowned leader of the Casterwill Elders at the fortress. Lucas, naturally, doesn't swallow that easily, and Sophie herself agrees she still needs to prove herself, but there's no time for political debate, because Dante and Den show up with the worst possible news. The blood spiral army is knocking at the door, and they aren't here to play around. Tantra summons the Basila Hive, turning insects into a Lord of the Rings-style air transport for the silent soldiers. Dante and his team head out to take down the hive, while Sophie stays behind to protect the fortress. Inside, Nimue reveals that the building itself is a colossal weapon. She and Sophie hold the doors against endless waves of enemies, but things spiral out of control when the Casterwill hunters and Marduk break in. Sophie can't summon Mithras. People start falling, and that's when Nimue makes the heaviest decision of her life. She uses the Sacro Blade, wiping out the enemies, but sacrificing her own life in the process. Before passing, she confesses that her greatest fear was never the villain Keel, but rather the heavy burden of protecting the family. It's an absolute gut punch. Outside, the war is blazing. Sophie finally goes toe-to-toe with Keel, overcomes her insecurities, and uses all her power to take the guy down. Keel still summons the dreaded Efreet King as a last resort, and the beast gives even Mithras a hard time. It falls to Locke, using the Willblade and with a little spiritual help from Pendragon, to finish off the fire giant. With Lord Casterwill's statue glowing and the Guardians waking an army of stone titans, the enemies finally sound the retreat. In the end, Sophie's leadership is no longer questioned, and the Casterwill family realizes that united, they actually stand a chance. As the dust settles at the fortress, the team splits up. Dante goes to explore the Sea of Cortez following a lead from Locke's father, while Locke, Sophie, and Den are sent to Hamelin, Germany. The mission given by Guggenheim seems simple. Investigate some anomalies at the local cathedral. Arriving there at sunset, the place is dead silent. They find a stained glass window depicting the classic legend of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. So far, just a regular history lesson. But then, a small rat-like titan named Gremlo appears. Locke tries to play the animal whisperer, but reality kicks in the form of an absolute avalanche of rats pouring down the walls. They try everything, but the critters just won't die and keep multiplying. The tide of rodents is so bizarre that they actually swallow Sophie whole. Locke and Den manage to rescue her, and the team finally puts the pieces together. They need the music from the legend to stop this army. They run and lock the doors. Things start to make sense. An old message from Ethan mentioned a child song needed in the waters of the Conqueror. That is exactly what Dante is hunting for in the ocean. The problem is, while Locke and Guggenheim hold the fort at the cathedral, Sophie goes out to buy a flute and ends up cornered by organization agents in an alley. Den arrives just in time to save his friend, and Sophie sprints back to the church playing the flute. It's automatic. The sound hypnotizes the Gremlos, who fall into single file and march straight back into the amulet in the stained glass window. As if by magic, the flute Sophie bought transforms into the original instrument from the legend. With the key to the puzzle in hand, Dante calls the team, letting them know it's time for everyone to meet up in California.